what does validating look like? If your child is having big emotions, you can say, and this is, by the way, also really helpful with partners or other loved ones, colleagues, friends. Um, you could say things like, "Hey, I get it. I felt like that before." Or you could say things like, "It's totally okay to be ashamed. I don't mind. Just go ahead." You can also say, "I would feel super left out too if that would happen to me." But also validate the really positive emotions. Like, for example, you could say, "Hey, I I see that you're so joyful right now." Another one that you could say, and also the teacher could say, is, "I see you are really upset when it uh, because the glass or that book fell from the table. You didn't want that glass or book to fall from that table." You could say things like, "It seems like you feel like, for example, angry or disappointed or a bit jealous or really hurt." And then you say, "Is that right?" Okay, so sometimes you might not have the right word for it immediately, or your child doesn't um, understand that word. It's totally okay. At least your child knows that you are trying, and your child feels seen and heard in that moment. Okay, so what we want is our children to give words to what they label and what we validate, and what we also label. So, despite the fact that you are willing to validate everything, it does not mean that you have to accept all the behavior that they are showing at that situation in that moment. But what we do want is to respect the feelings that they are feeling. And so if it's really interesting, because if you have every child reacts in a different way. So if your child tends to wind up while having big emotions, then and you ask your child to do high energy tasks, you will see that your child gets overwhelmed and dysregulated. And so then you could do things like blowing bubbles together, coloring, grounding, belly breathing. Oh yeah, for example, let's count all the yellow things in the room, for example. But do you see that your child is winding down? You could do things like high energy tasks, like, for example, jumping, running, hopping, skipping on the trampoline, because that works better with their emotional regulation. And you can also share a story about what happened to you, for example, in the past, but then be really careful, because it should be really authentic and not from a point of taking over the conversation or dismissing it, the feelings, or distracting your child, because what you want is your child to process that emotion and feelings. You want them to go through that emotion and feeling, so then they can process it. And then your child feels more seen and heard. It also works with us, right?